For a while, Vulcan tried to find out if the girl was all right. But after a moment, she herself was afraid of what was happening. Why was she holding the sword and laughing all the time? But as soon as they had finished, our hero interrupted their conversation and said that he had almost finished his training, and it seems that they've waited too long for him. Turning around, he said with a smile that there would be a very large wave of monsters today. His two new companions wanted to know more. What monster wave is he talking about? After a while, they sat down in front of the fireplace. It was the 4th floor. They had gone to the 5th floor the night before. He explained to them that after the 5th floor, goblins will appear instead of kobolds, and he'll be able to get the Goblin Killer achievement. Haru asked him if he really wanted to go and destroy the Monster Lord. However, Vulcan said that you can't just attack them from wherever you want. No one knows when or on which floor the Lord will appear. The hero went on to say that he had no intention of hunting the Goblin Lord. And is it really necessary? He happily shouted that he knew how to create an attack wave manually. His words caused great shock and surprise to the other 2 members of this team. Is he really going to create a wave of monsters by hand? According to Vulcan, if someone in the tower knew about it, they would use it immediately. But our hero replied that he found out about it by accident. I think it was between the 3rd and 4th floors when the necromancer climbed the tower. A crack appeared, and that's when he saw this method. Each floor had a special central area where all the monsters appeared. If you find it and direct your mana there, the monsters will appear just as they did during the wave. In Vulcan's opinion, someone must have gained quite a bit from this, since he knows about it. He was referring to our hero, of course. However, the young man replied that this was the first time he had done this. After all, monsters above level 300 are much stronger than goblins. And such a wave of monsters couldn't even be stopped by 4 great beings. Drawing a conclusion from the young man's words, Vulcan realized that he hadn't known about it when it could be used earlier. The young man replied that things were different now, and to become stronger, he must make as many waves as possible. After a while in the city, in a safe place, to the surprise of many of the warriors present, the ground began to shake beneath their feet. No one realized what was happening. One of those present looked in the direction where a large, oversized energy portal had appeared, and everyone realized that it was a wave of monsters about to attack. They never saw a wave on the 1st floor. The next second, a huge number of goblins ran in their direction, and everyone rushed to flee, for no one expected to see them in the village, for there was no warning. But these goblins weren't taking it lightly. They shot their poisoned arrows at the fleeing warriors, and one of the young men was hit. He fell to the ground and couldn't move. One of his friends tried to help him, but he knew full well that it was the goblin's paralytic poison and that his friend would not be able to move for a while. He had tried to save him, but now that these goblins were so close, he knew that they would be the end of him. He was very sorry, because he didn't even make it to the 10th floor. But in the next second, our hero suddenly appeared very close and was able to activate his demon ring. A huge stream of his powerful energy struck right in the middle of the street, sending up huge clouds of smoke and dust. With a stern voice, he told the young man that the uninjured warrior should carry his poisoned comrade to safety. The young man knew exactly who was standing before him. Before him was the Ghost Mask, the same warrior who was rumored to be so great. Standing in the middle of the huge crater, our hero could hear the crowd behind him discussing his appearance. No one could believe that he would face this wave alone. They all seemed to have been saved. That's exactly what our hero was counting on. He wanted to save everyone, because if they survive and spread as many rumors about him as possible, it will be to his advantage. After that, he cast his spell to make his demonic soldiers rise from the ashes and start fighting. Huge streams of energy and his monsters rained down on the goblins from all directions, further destroying them. However, Vulcan was furious because he was the one who created the soldiers and summoned them all for the current attack. Nevertheless, our hero ordered him to stop talking and create as many soldiers as possible. But the next second, they were greatly surprised by an explosion nearby. One of their soldiers had been destroyed. There seemed to be someone else who was able to kill that spirit demon soldier, and that someone was a spirit goblin who possessed a special magic torch. He could attack them and kill their spirit soldiers. Now, we had to get rid of him as soon as possible. Otherwise, they would not be able to carry out this raid. Meanwhile, Haru climbed up to the roof of one of the buildings and watched the huge number of goblins that still remained through the energy portal. The next second, she quickly jumped down from the roof while holding her sword, and her face resembled a completely different young and beautiful face than before. She looked more like a demon. She set about destroying one goblin after another, delivering her blows quickly, so fast that they had no chance to defend themselves, let alone attack her. The Vulcan immediately rejoiced, realizing that they seemed to have a chance. But the very next second, he was a bit puzzled because the girl was moving too fast. Our hero seized the moment and activated his gluttony skill to devour the soul of one of the dead goblins that could destroy his ghost soldiers. The young man was very upset because the fire had an amazing effect on his army. Now, using his techniques on such goblins was a futile endeavor. He had to think of something to inflict as much defeat as possible on all those goblins. Thanks to the absorbed soul, he activated a special spiritual fire that sent a huge wave towards them and began to destroy goblins one by one. Suddenly, a girl stood beside him, and he thanked Haru for her great work and told her to keep it up. But this was not the girl he had met before. She had a strange smile on her face, and our hero realized that something was happening to her. After a moment, she showed her red sword, red hot from the many goblins she had already humiliated. With a terrible whirlwind of fire, she went into the next battle, bringing death to all present. Our hero had to cover himself with his hand because her sword emitted too much light. He knew it was a difficult item, but he had no idea it was such a powerful way to fight. Suddenly, his eyes widened in surprise because it seemed that this girl was no longer the girl he knew before. She was transforming into some kind of strong demonic warrior who had incredible power thanks to this weapon. He called her name out loud and couldn't believe his eyes. But the girl looked at him with her strange, fearful gaze, causing even more horror. And in the next second, thanks to her sword, she made two powerful strikes. It was like a laser cutting through the entire space around her. Her blow almost destroyed our hero. Her blows were so powerful and swift that they sliced every structure in the area like butter. And in the next instant, parts of these houses began to collapse into the street, where a large number of goblins were concentrated. To their great horror, they realized that they were about to be destroyed as these huge chunks of houses began to fall on them with a tremendous rumble. She managed to destroy an entire village in an instant, and our hero barely escaped the attack. What the hell was going on? He didn't understand at all. After that, our hero looked at the girl holding the weapon and realized that she was not the Haru he knew before. But she didn't think to stop and attacked our hero in the next second. He barely managed to dodge the powerful assault. A moment later, there was a huge explosion as her weapon managed to hit one of the nearby trees. The young man kept shouting that it was him, her friend. Why doesn't she recognize him? But the girl paid no attention to his words and continued to attack, swinging her red sword. He defended himself because he didn't want to die. However, he noticed that she was very strong and could literally destroy him in the next second. The girl took another leap and swung her sword, once again destroying a large part of the house next door. A Vulcan was heading their way. He made his path through those great thick clouds of ash and dust, trying to find his master and the girl. A moment later, he found our hero sitting on the ruins of some house and came to his senses. Our protagonist seemed to be at a loss for a while and could not answer anything. He was a bit bruised. To Vulcan's delight, his master was fine. Now he asked about the girl. What was wrong with her? The young man answered that she almost killed him with her punch. Suddenly, Haru appeared in front of them, holding her sword. It felt like it was the goblin leader, for she possessed incredible strength. The girl continued to smile broadly and stare at our hero with her demonic gaze. By this time, most of the monsters were already dead, and it seemed as if the flood had stopped. The protagonist ordered Vulcan to take care of the others while he grabbed his own weapon. He put on a mask and was about to deal with Haru. He sharply pushed off the ground with his foot and rushed forward to attack. He was now able to activate Fighting Providence, and through the mask he saw her in a completely different light. The intuition he had developed while climbing to the 599th floor told him that her sword was very dangerous. It will simply cut him to pieces. Now that he realizes that there are no eternal friends or enemies in the tower, he had only one chance to destroy this girl. Surely a very sad story, but it looks like he has to say goodbye. He apologized to himself, and in the next moment he tried to strike. It was aimed directly at her head. But the young man still had his doubts, for she once again appeared before his eyes in the form he had known before. But in the next second, his strike was stopped by the girl's hand. How could she do that? The young man did not understand at all, for he had used all of his strength. Does she also possess something incredible even though she doesn't have a mask? She looked at him with a smile, and he realized that she had used her battle providence to anticipate his attack. She laughed, hit him with her weapon, and threw him aside. Now our hero was bleeding from his chest, so he didn't wait for her to finish him off and ordered his spiritual soldiers to attack her. The huge bony arms of the undead began to rise from the ground, and in the next second they began to assault the girl. It was the dead goblins who tried to grab her and stop her. However, after a moment, Haryu's eyes began to shine even brighter, and she easily destroyed all of those ghost warriors. To the horror of our protagonist, he didn't even see a single blow from his own soldiers. Was she also using that martial providence she spoke of earlier? Now he realizes that she is too strong, but he doesn't understand how to defeat her. There was another explosion that carried our hero a long way. He started to fall down that huge building. However, he was able to pull himself together in time and realized that he could only defeat this strong opponent with cunning. Something was clearly wrong with her. She seemed somehow tired now. Perhaps she was exhausted and had lost her strength. Her eyes were bleeding, and she was sobbing for some reason. Our hero seemed to realize that this was the side effect she was talking about. Now he might have a chance to defeat her. He just had to make sure that she couldn't use her battle providence and continue to wear her down. So he decided to try a trick and jumped through a broken window inside the building. The girl went after him. Angrily, she looked down and saw our hero there, happy to attack him again. He looked at her and offered her a fight. To our hero's great joy, Haryu immediately rushed down with her weapon. But as soon as she reached our hero, the young man summoned his ghost goblins, who began to attack the girl with poisoned arrows. At that moment, she had too little time to react to these zombie goblins. The protagonist was overjoyed at the fact that this paralyzing goblin poison could prove fatal to her. Would she really be able to dodge those blows without using her skill?